reflection of the values that they live. And organizations are a reflection of the values that they live.
You can move the mic a little closer.
Okay. Organizations are a reflection of the values that they live, and so are people. Every Friday we learn a little bit about each other's values and the stories that you tell. And that's what I want to share with you today, some of my stories about how my values were shaped. I grew up in the military, not as a soldier, but as a military brat. My dad was in the Army. He's a great dad, great soldier, great leader who fought in 3 wars. Growing up, the Army way was the container in which I experienced life. I'd like to share with you 9 lessons that I learned through examples of experiences that I had that were very important in shaping my values. Lesson 1. When I was in college, my father was in Vietnam, fighting a very unpopular war. Friends used to ask me if that embarrassed me. It was always such a surprise to get that question. I think, wow, they obviously don't know what it's like to be in the Army, or they could never ask such a question. My answer would be no. I'm incredibly proud of my dad, and it felt really good to say that. The lesson? Being proud feels good. It makes you feel confident, so be proud of what you do every day. Lesson 2. Growing up the Army way is very challenging, particularly moving from place to place. By the time I was 18, I'd moved 11 times, about 9 different schools. It was hard making friends and then leaving friends. But on the flip side of that, if something upsetting would happen or I'd get in trouble in school, I'd always think, oh well, we'll be moving soon. The lesson? Let go and move on. Don't hang on to things that make you unhappy. Lesson 3. Dad wanted to make sure that every place we lived we took full advantage of. So Sundays in our family was sightseeing day, whether we liked it or not. We'd pile in the car after church, the doors would lock, off we'd go, not necessarily happily. It was museums and battlefields in Washington, missions up and down the coast of California, castles throughout Germany. The lesson? Look for opportunities to continuously learn. Life is about learning, so find those opportunities. Lesson 4. I guess when you fight in war and you see people alive 1 minute and dead the next, it becomes very important to you to live every minute to the maximum. And in our family, idle time was absolutely not permitted, not even on vacation. We had to get up at the crack of dawn. At 7 o'clock in the morning, we had to be on the beach. We had to be in line for ski lift tickets. We had to be on our way to an amusement park. Of course, we would whine all the way, "Oh, Dad, it's too early." And his response would always be, "Well, if you want to hang around the hotel room, then let's just pack our bags and go home." The lesson? Maximize whatever you do. Make every minute count. Lesson 5. The uniforms are a very important part of being in the Army. It's part of your identity. And it just so happens that what we wore happened to be a great area of conflict with my dad. For example, when I was in high school, the whole family had to go to a change of command ceremony. And I put on this navy blue and white suit, a pair of brand new navy blue shoes, and top it off a pair of white lace stockings. I came downstairs, my dad looked at me and he said, "Take them off." I said, "I'm not going to do it. Take them off." "I'm not doing that. You're going to go and you're going to take those off." Well, I did take them off and I did go. But I also got smarter. A little later, I was getting ready to go to a football game. Now, all my friends would wear blue jeans to the football game. Of course, the rule in our house was to wear a skirt. So I put a skirt on, I kissed my dad goodbye, I stopped at the first gas station and changed into my blue jeans. The lesson? Be strategic about picking your battles. Lesson 6. In Germany, we lived on an army base. My father was the base commander. Our house was in a valley and was surrounded by barracks. One winter day, we were goofing around. In the back of the house was a big sliding glass door, so it was all glass. And the song "Hanging on Soupy" came on the radio. That's how long ago it was. My dad got up and started doing this really ridiculous dance. One of us happened to notice when we were looking out the window that there were all these telescopes pointing in the direction of our house, coming out of the windows of the barracks. When we pointed this out to my father, the telescopes quickly retracted. I could tell he was really embarrassed. The next day, before dawn, he decided to have a surprise inspection of the barracks. So everyone had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for this inspection. As he was leaving the barracks, he slipped on some ice and broke his leg. This was a big joke around that base for a very long period of time. But there was also a lesson involved in that. And the lesson was, do the right things for the right reasons. Principle is very important in whatever you do. Lesson 7. Living in Northern Virginia, it's really notable that if a car breaks down, it's going to be a military man who stops to help you fix it. It probably is associated with their sense of stewardship, and I had a lot of experience with this with respect to my dad. I remember the days when it was okay to pick up hitchhikers. One day my sister and I were in the car with my father, stopped at a stoplight. At the other side of the intersection, there was a bunch of popular high school football players who we knew of, but certainly didn't know. My father looked at us and said, "Do you know those guys?" And we knew exactly what was going to happen. We slumped down in our seats and started saying, "Please, Dad, don't stop, as the car pulled over to the side of the road. The lesson? Suck it up for the greater good. Sometimes it's important to you. Lesson 8. The Army and the military overall is like one huge family. We always had military people living with us, or we were living with them, we were visiting with them when we would travel. And this was a rule that my mom, it was almost like there was this unspoken rule that you were to open your house to other military people. My mother loved this rule. As a matter of fact, she standed it. Our house was absolutely open to anyone who needed a place to stay. One time I was talking with my dad on the telephone, the doorbell rang. He said, "I need to go to get the doorbell." He came back and said, "Cindy, I gotta get off the phone." I said, "What? What's the matter?" He said, "There's 2 Iranian girls on the front steps with their suitcases saying they're coming here to stay." But it was another set of foreign exchange students that my mother had forgotten to tell my father about. It didn't matter. He welcomed them into the house as though he was fully informed. The lesson? Be generous with what you have and always look for opportunities to help others. Lesson 9. Have you ever noticed that when soldiers march, they sing? I think they call it cadence. Well, we used to sing at our house too. Every time we were in, for example, in a car trip going somewhere, and the kids in the back seat would be getting in a fight, my father would break out into some sort of song that he would lead us through. And when I was 8 years old, my father signed my older sister and I up for accordion lessons of all things. Whenever family friends would come over, he'd pull out those stupid accordions, my sister and I would play, everyone would sing, our basset hound dog would howl. That was a typical event. Many years later, I told my dad that having that heavy accordion resting on my chest during those very important developmental years had permanent damage in terms of taking The lesson? Music bonds people, even if you don't like the instrument. I could go on forever in terms of the lessons that I learned that relate to the Army way, but you get the point. If I had to summarize these lessons, it would be, live a life that matters and never stop learning, sharing, and having fun.